Welcome back to Unit 4 on oblique triangle trigonometry. Let's begin. So in Chapter 3, we dealt with acute triangles, right? Triangles that all, I'm not connected. A moment. Sorry about that. In Chapter 3, we dealt with acute triangles, triangles that were all had angles that were less than 90 degrees. In Chapter 4, we are going to deal with obtuse angles. So now, a reminder, an obtuse angle is an angle that's greater than 90 degrees. So we could get a triangle. We're used to triangles that look like this. Now we could get something that looks like this. And today we're going to go through the basics of how that will affect us now that we have an obtuse angle that is greater than 90 degrees. Okay? So today's goal is to understand the primary relationship, understand the relationship between primary trigonometric ratios and obtuse angles. Now, there's a little table here. You can write down the table if you'd like. Its purpose is to help you understand this down here. But you won't, the table's not super important. It will help you understand it as we go. So if I were to take, here I've got a table that's got the angles and the sine of that angle. So let's start with that. So the first angle is 20 degrees. And it asks us for the sine of 20 degrees. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just give you a moment, for those of you that are copying it down, I'll give you a moment just to get caught up so you can pay attention. All right. So the first angle is 20 degrees, and it asks us for the sine of that angle. So if I go sine 20 degrees, I get 0.34202, etc. Okay, that's enough for now. Now, the next part of the table says, what is 180 degrees minus our angle? Well, 180 minus 20 would be 160 degrees. And the final part asks us to, what is the sine of that angle? What is the sine of 160 degrees? So if I go sine 160, which of course is an obtuse angle, sine 160 is 0.34202. You can see, hopefully, these two angles, or these two trigonometric sine ratios are the same for 20 and for 160. Let's see if that carries on through 40, 60, and 70. Sine of 40 is 0.64278. 4. 180 minus 40 would be 140 degrees. And sine of 140 is also 0.64278. You can see that once again, these two sine ratios were equal for sine 20, or for sine 40 and sine 140. Now, that remains true for the other ones. I'll just fill them in quickly. Sine of 60 is 0.86602. 180 minus 60 would be 120. So the answer here is the same, 0.86602. Sine of 70 is 0.93969. 180 minus 70 would be 110. And the trigonometric ratio, sine ratio of 110 would be also 0.93969. So what this means is right here. The sine ratio of any angle is equal to the sine ratio of 180 minus that angle. So here's sort of where you would see this in a question. Okay, just a quick glance at that. You could be solving a question, and we're not going to solve the question right now, but you could be solving a question like this, and let's say you were trying to find this angle, and you did your calculations, and you found out that this was 35 degrees. Okay? Now, does this angle look like an angle that's 35 degrees? No, it's far too big. This is an obtuse angle. It's got to be greater than 90. So then what you could say to yourself, well, if it's not 35, then it must be 180 minus 35, which would be 145. And 145 degrees would be that angle because the sine value of 35 is equal to the sine value of 145. Okay? So it's just a little thing to look for where if you come across an answer that's not realistic based on the diagram on the size of that angle, it could be the 180 minus that angle instead. Okay? Now, we'll briefly do it for cos and tan as well. It's slightly different for those ones. So we'll just go through that. Cos of 20 is 0.93969. 180 minus 20 is 160 again. And the cos of 160 is negative 0.93969. Okay, we'll do one more. Cos of 40 is 0.76604. 180 minus 40 is 140. And the cos of 140 is negative 0.76604. And that would continue all the way down if we were to fill out the rest of this table. It's going to remain the same, where the 180 minus excuse me, the 180 minus the angle will give you the opposite of it. It'll give you the negative 0.3420. Okay, so cos is similar to tan similar to sine. In sine they were equal, but in cos they are the opposite. Okay, the first one will be positive, and the 180 minus that is going to be negative. Okay. Now these little equations will be available on the board or on a formula sheet for the test if you ever needed to look at them. Okay. Finally, tan. I don't want to fill out the table for tan. I'll just do one of them. But tan is exactly the same as cos, where if one is positive, the 180 minus that angle, the tan ratio will be negative. So it's the same as, it is the same as cos. Okay, that will come in handy later on. Okay, so the tan and cos are the same, and the sine, or sorry, they're opposite of the angle, and the sine is equal to it. Now that's really all there is for 4.1. 4.1 just wants you to understand the basics of that, and then 4.2 you're going to get a chance to put that into practice. Okay, I guess we'll look at this example quickly. It says, find another trig ratio equal to the following. The question says sine 45. Well, we remember, hopefully, that sine of an angle is equal to sine of 180 minus that angle. So another trig ratio equal to sine 45, I would just go 180 minus 45. And then I know sine of 135 would be equal to sine of 45. For cos, excuse me, for cos they've got negative cos 62. So we remember that cos of the angle is equal to negative cos 180 minus that angle. So 180 minus 62 is 118. So if this one is negative cos 62, then the equal one to that would be positive cos 118. 180 minus 62, and I got 118. The third one has sine. So sine of 34, again, we know sine is equal, so we just go 180 minus 34, 146, sine of 146. And for tan, remember that tan is like cos, where it's the negative, the opposite of it. So 180 minus 71 is 109. So tan 71 is equal to negative tan 109. Okay. So if you have access to these three things, which you will, there should be no issues finding out any of those equal trig ratios. Okay. That brings us to the end of 4.1. The assignment is just on page 87 on your workbook. And check back next time for 4.2. Thank you. Have a good day.